Hi, welcome to day 6. Hope you enjoyed your couple of days off. Your weekend's done and now we're back on to Genesis again. This today is called Abram's Lot in Life. It's a little play on words because I like puns. And we're reading Genesis 12, 13 and 14. The entire week really is going to be made up of Abram's or Abraham's later on story, and it's a really interesting one because obviously it's so important, significant in the formation of Israel's identity as the people of God. That's who Abraham is. That's the founder of the faith. So it's a really interesting couple of chapters, and I hope that you enjoy the story as it develops. Today I'm going to be reading from another kind of modern translation, not the Message today, but instead we're going to be hearing from The Voice. So let's see if you like that one. Genesis 12. One day the Eternal One called out to Abram, "Abram, get up and go. Leave your country, leave your relatives and your father's home, and travel to the land I will show you. Don't worry, I will guide you there. I have plans to make a great people from your descendants. And I'm going to put a special blessing on you and cause your reputation to grow so that you will become a blessing, an example to all others. I will also bless those who bless you and further you in your journey, and I'll trip up those who try to trip you up along the way. Through your descendants, all of the families of the earth will find their blessing in you." Without any hesitation, Abram went. He did exactly as the Eternal One had asked him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took with him his wife, Sarai, his brother's son, Lot, all of their possessions, and all of the persons they had acquired for their household while in Haran. And they all set off towards the land of Canaan. When they reached Canaan, Abram kept going through it to a sacred place called Shechem, where an oak of a Moreh stood. At this time, the Canaanite people were living on this land, so Abram could not take it as his own. There, the Eternal appeared to Abram. "I am going to give you this land to your future generations." So, out of honour and respect, there Abram built an altar table to the Eternal One, who had appeared to him and spoken these words of promise. After that, Abram travelled on to the hill country east of Bethel, and there he pitched a tent and made a home for himself and his family, between Bethel in the west and Ai in the east. Here Abram built another altar table for the Eternal One, where he called upon the name of the Eternal frequently. Then Abram journeyed south towards the Negev region. Now, at this time, there came a severe famine in the land of Canaan. Food was scarce, so Abram made his way to Egypt to live there for a while as a foreigner. As Abram was about to enter Egypt, he pulled Sarai, his wife, aside. "Sarai, you are very beautiful, and I'm well aware that when the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'Look, she's his wife.' Then they will kill me and let you live so that they can have you for themselves. Tell them you are my sister, so that nothing will happen to me because of you. In this way, you can save my life." So when Abram came into Egypt, with Sarai and his family, the Egyptians did indeed see that Sarai was very beautiful. And when Pharaoh's officials saw her, they told Pharaoh just how beautiful she was. So Sarai was taken into the Pharaoh's household and made part of his harem. She pleased the Pharaoh, so he treated Abram very well, giving him gifts of sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male and female servants, female donkeys and camels. But the Eternal One was not pleased and began afflicting the Pharaoh and his household with skin diseases because of what was happening to Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abram to come before him. "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me that this woman was your wife? Why did you say she was only your sister, so that I felt free to take her to be one of my wives? Here she is. Take your wife and get out of here." And Pharaoh gave his orders to his men to make sure that Abram went on his way along with his wife and all of his belongings. Genesis 13. Abram left Egypt with his wife, Lot, and everything he owned, and he went back up to the Negev region. Because of his experience in Egypt, Abram became quite rich. He had livestock, silver and gold to carry with him. He journeyed north in stages from the Negev as far as Bethel, to the place where he had pitched his tent earlier between Bethel and Ai. He returned to one of the first altar tables he had made in the land, stopped there and called on the name of the Eternal One once again. Lot, who had gone with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tent. So the land was no longer large enough to support two of them living together as one household. They each had so many possessions that they just couldn't stay together any longer. Arguments erupted between Abram's and Lot's livestock herders as they tried to graze their flocks side by side. During this time, the Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living on this land too. "Let's not fight. I don't want there to be any animosity between you and me or between our herders. After all, we are family. A vast land is out there available to you. It is time for us to go our separate ways. You choose your land. If you choose east, I'll go west. If you choose west, I'll go east. It's your call." Lot looked around and he noticed the grassy plains in the Jordan Valley. They looked well watered and fertile, just as he had imagined the Eternal One's gardens might be, or as he knew in the land of Egypt in the direction of Zor to be. This all happened before the Eternal destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So Lot chose to settle his family on the plains of the Jordan Valley, and he journeyed eastward. This is how Abram and Lot separated from each other and established two different households. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, and Lot settled among the cities of the Jordanian Valley. He eventually spread out and pitched his tent as far away as Sodom. Now, you need to know that the people of the city of Sodom were quite wicked, utterly defiant towards God. After Lot had moved away, the Eternal One spoke to Abram. "Look around you now, as far as you can see to the north, south, east and west. All of the land you see is for you and for your descendants to possess forever. I will make your descendants as many as there are specks of dust on the earth. If anyone could count the dust of the earth, then he could also count how many descendants I'm talking about. Go on now and walk the entire expanse of the land, for you need to see what I am giving you. So Abram moved his family and belongings again, this time to Hebron, settling near the oaks of Mamre. Abram built yet another altar table to the Eternal here in this new place. Genesis 14. Back when King Amraphel of Shinar, King Arioch of Elsar, King Chedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goyim ruled the land, these 4 kings formed an alliance and made war on 5 other kings: Bera of Sodom, Bersha of Gomorrah, Shinab of Admah, Shemember of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, a city now known as Zor. All of these joined forces in the valley of Siddim, near the area now known as the Dead Sea. You see, the 5 latter kings had been conquered by Chedorlaomer, and so they had served him for 12 years. But in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the 3 kings who were allied with him in the region squashed the rebellions of Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shevav Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, all the way to El Paran, which lies on the edge of the wilderness. Then Chedorlaomer and his allies turned back and did the same in En Mishpat, a city also known as Kadesh. And they conquered all of the country of the Amalekites and also the Amorites, who lived in the Hazazon Tamar. The 5 kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim and Bela, that is Zor, all went and joined in battle in the valley of Siddim against the 4 kings: Chedorlaomer of Elam, Tidal of Goyim, Amraphel of Shinrar, and Arioch of Elasa. The valley of Siddim held many dangers. It was full of tar pits, and as the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled the battle, some of their soldiers fell into the pits and were killed. The rest managed to make it out alive to the hill country. As a result, Chedorlaomer and his allies captured all the spoils of battle from the retreating forces of Sodom and Gomorrah. Their provisions, weapons and other supplies they then left. But before they took their spoils, they also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, who lived in Sodom. They took him prisoner along with all of his goods. Then one of the men who had escaped the battle went and found Abram, the Hebrew who at that time was living by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and Aner, some of Abram's allies. He told Abram what had happened. As soon as Abram heard that his nephew had been taken prisoner, he gathered a company of his most reliable and best trained men. There were 318 amongst his household. And they pursued the enemy as far north as Dan. When they caught up with them, Abram divided up his men, surrounded the enemy and attacked them during the night. He and his soldiers crushed the invaders and pursued all the survivors all the way up to Habar, north of Damascus. After the battle, Abram recovered all the spoils that the enemy had taken, and he brought them back with him. He rescued his nephew Lot, and he brought back all of his goods. There were also captives too, including some women that he had rescued. after Abram and his men had defeated Chedorlaomer and the other kings that were allied with him. The king of Sodom went out to meet him on his return at the valley of Shavah, an area also known as the King's Valley. The priest king of Jerusalem, Melchizedek, came out to meet him as well and brought out bread and wine for them. Melchizedek was a priest of the one whom he called the Most High God. Priest King Melchizedek offered a special blessing to Abram. May Abram be blessed by the Most High God, creator of heavens and earth. Blessing and honour to the Most High God, who clearly delivered your enemies into your hands. Abram gave the priest king a tenth of all of the captured goods he was bringing back with him. And then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people, and you can take all the spoils for yourself." But Abram replied, "I have pledged a solemn oath to the Eternal One, to the Most High God, creator of the heavens and the earth. I promised that I would not keep any shred of what belongs to you, not a thread of garment, not a strap of a sandal. That way you could never take any credit for any wealth of mine. I will take nothing except for the food that my men have eaten. As for the men who fought with me, Aner, Eshcol and Mam, let them take their shares. But I will take nothing more." So let's have a quick thought about those chapters that we've just heard. The beginning of Abraham's story. And I will say Abraham in this context because I keep struggling calling Abraham Abram, who he was before God changed his name. So God calls Abram from where he lives and says, "I want you to go somewhere else," which we can't really see why it is that he chooses Abram. There seems to be no discernible reason why Abram is chosen above anyone else. Why not take somebody who already is where you want them to be? But we see that God does choose Abram, and the one thing that you can say in Abram's favour is he responds. He does go. He's called and he goes. And it makes me wonder if we have any experience of stepping out in faith, of going somewhere because God calls us to go there, because we feel that we need to be doing something new. You know, what are your experiences? Because I think most people have that fish out of water experience at some point in their lives. I imagine it was quite a big one for Abram now. Also to note that Abram's lot, because that's what we called this Abram's lot in life, because I like puns. I don't know. Family relations always get me thinking, so I wonder if Lot is almost a bit son-like, because obviously Lot's father, Abram's brother, has died. And you feel like Abram's kind of taken a lot under his wing, that he sees him as his responsibility. And indeed, we have to remember, we have to keep that perspective of sort of Jewish history, and your family is everything. That is your support system. That is the way that you live out your life. And the family obligation is huge. So, I mean, even if there was no familial, happy relationship between Lot and Abram, it was still Abram's job to look after Lot anyway. But it's an interesting read, and we still hear about Lot further on. I'm sure you can kind of keep hearing it as we talk about Sodom and Gomorrah. You go, "Oh, I know that story in a bit." Other one I keep noticing is Sarai passed off as Abram's sister. It's a common theme. We'll see this again in Genesis, so remember it. You can't help but feel, Abram, don't you worry that Sarai might be treated actually possibly worse. Like, it saves your life, but maybe Sarai doesn't want to be taken as another man's wife. And yes, it's very obviously such a different relationship than we have now. So sometimes that can be quite jarring, quite difficult to hear. You know, Abram, the father of the faith, just letting his wife be taken as a wife for another man to save his own skin. It's quite tough sometimes to wrestle with all that. You might have noticed that I was wrestling a little myself with all those names, but good news is if I wrestle with them, you don't have to. There's a lot of mouthfuls, but when we have this big war scene, and again we get a perspective of the history. We can't help but when we hear about wars, think of huge wars. You know, think of the civil wars, the World War II. But these are like warring faction, you know, warring families. I mean, what did you say? 318 men that he took from his household to challenge 5 kings who had, four kings, my apologies, 4 kings who'd allied together. We get a perspective that it's a much smaller scale, and there's a lot more turbulence though, because anyone, you know, you get a big enough family, a big enough wealth, and suddenly you've got quite a lot of power amassed there. So hopefully you've got lots of thoughts on this first day of our second week, and you can bring those to discussions or just think of it in your own personal study time, but hopefully this has helped you a little bit.